There is a letter that begins with the name of God, and then forgets him completely. By the end of this story, an empire that has never lost a war will lose one. And the man who beats them will be dead within 2 months of his own victory. Killed not by the enemy he defeated, but by the men who stood beside him when he did it. To understand what Qutuz was facing, you have to understand what the Mongols had already done to everyone who faced them first. 40 years earlier, the Khwarezmian Empire, a Turkic Muslim power that stretched across Central Asia and Persia, had been one of the largest states on earth. Genghis Khan erased it in 3 years. Its cities were not conquered, they were removed. Populations that resisted were counted, not estimated, counted. And the numbers that survive in the old chronicles are difficult to say out loud. Then came Baghdad. For 500 years, Baghdad had been the intellectual heart of the Islamic world, the seat of the Abbasid Caliphate, home to libraries that held the accumulated knowledge of centuries. In February 1258, Hulagu's army broke through its walls. What followed is remembered even today as one of the deepest wounds in Islamic history. The Caliph himself was killed. The House of Wisdom, one of the great libraries on earth, was destroyed. And it said the Tigris ran dark with ink from the books thrown into it. The Caliphate, the symbolic center of the Muslim world for 6 centuries, simply ceased to exist. And still, the Mongols kept moving west. Aleppo fell. Damascus surrendered without a real fight. City after city made the same calculation. Resistance had only ever produced one outcome, so why choose it? By 1260, there was exactly one power left standing between the Mongol war machine and total control of the Islamic heartland. A young military state in Egypt, ruled by former slave soldiers, the Mamluks. And their newest sultan, a man who had, only months earlier, seized the throne through a palace killing of his own, was about to receive a letter.
Hulagu did not send an army first. He sent words. And words, in his hands, were a weapon of their own. From the King of Kings of the East and the West, the great Khan, to Qutuz the Mamluk, who fled our swords into this land and now enjoys its comforts while others answer for it. We are the army of God on his earth. We were created from his wrath and unleashed upon those who have drawn it. Do not be deceived by the strength of your walls or the number of your men. What use is a fortress against us? What use is an army? Do not delay your answer. Before the fire of war lights itself, surrender. No terms, no tribute negotiable enough to matter. Just one door, and it opened only onto submission. Every city that had refused this letter, or one like it, no longer existed. Qutuz read it. Then he read it again. There were 2 ways to answer a letter like Hulagu's. One of them kept you alive a little longer. Qutuz chose the other one. He convened his council in Cairo. What was decided there took minutes to carry out, and could never be undone once it was. The 4 envoys who had carried Hulagu's threat into the city were executed. Their heads were raised over Bab Zuela, one of Cairo's great gates, for every citizen walking beneath it to see. This was not simply rage answering rage. It was a message, delivered in the only language Hulagu himself had chosen to speak first. To his own people, it said, "Your sultan is not afraid, and neither should you be." To the Mongols, watching from the ruins of a dozen fallen cities, it said something they had not heard in decades. You have never met anyone like this before. There would be no second letter, no ambassador sent to reconsider, no door left open to negotiate through. From this moment on, only one side was walking away from this alive,
and Qutuz had just bet, publicly, permanently, that it would be his.
An execution, it turns out, is the easy part. What Qutuz needed next was harder to force than an envoy's death. He needed an army that actually wanted to march. When he gathered his emirs, the military commanders whose loyalty the entire campaign depended on, he found something worse waiting in that room than fear: hesitation. Men who had drawn from the state treasury for years and who now, with the bill finally due, found reasons to delay. Emirs of the Muslims, for a long time, you have eaten from the treasury of this state while despising the call to fight for it. I am going to face the Mongols myself, whether you follow or not. Whoever chooses jihad, ride with me now. Whoever does not, go home. God is watching him, and the sin of every Muslim woman left undefended will rest on the necks of those who stayed behind. No one answered immediately. The silence in that room lasted long enough to matter. Then, one commander at a time, they rode with him. It's worth noting what Qutuz was actually risking here. He had ruled Egypt for less than a year and had taken that throne through the killing of his own predecessor. If this campaign failed, there would be no council left to answer to, because there would be no Cairo left standing to hold one in. He wasn't just leading an army into Palestine. He was staking his own legitimacy and quite possibly his life on a single afternoon in a valley he hadn't seen yet. By late summer 1260, the Mamluk army was moving north through Gaza and into Palestine, territory the Mongols already considered theirs. They found Mongol garrisons at Gaza and pushed through them. Word reached the Mongol commander, Kitbuka, encamped near the Bekaa Valley, that the army he'd expected to wait behind Cairo's walls was already marching toward him instead. Qutuz chose his ground carefully, a valley called Ain Jalut, the spring of Goliath. And there he built a trap out of the one thing Kitbuka's scouts couldn't see: the hills. September 3rd, 1260. A valley south of Nazareth, roughly 20,000 men on each side. Numbers were even. The outcome would not be decided by them. Qutuz split his force. Baybars, his most capable commander, and the man history would remember far longer than either of them expected, led the front line, visible, exposed, close enough to bait to make Kitbuka believe it. The rest of the Mamluk army had vanished into the folds of the valley, hidden behind the hills, waiting for a signal that hadn't come yet. Kitbuka saw what looked like the entire Mamluk force in front of him, and he did what a Mongol commander who had never lost a battle was trained to do. He attacked hard and fast. Baybars fell back, not in retreat, but in design, pulling the Mongol cavalry deeper into ground they had never scouted. And then the hills moved. For the first time in living memory, since Genghis Khan had first ridden out of Mongolia 40 years earlier, an army that had never lost a war found itself surrounded on ground it did not choose. By nightfall, Kitbuka was dead, captured and executed, by most accounts, rather than killed in the fighting itself. His army was broken, and the idea that had terrified an entire civilization for 2 generations, that the Mongols simply could not be stopped, died with them in that valley.
There is a detail some later accounts attach to this battle, though it doesn't appear with certainty in the earliest sources, and it deserves to be treated as what it is: a tradition, not a confirmed fact. Several chronicles describe Khwarezmian exiles, refugees from that empire the Mongols had destroyed 40 years before, playing some role around the margins of this campaign. Whether that meant intelligence passed to Qutuz's camp, or simply displaced soldiers absorbed into one army or another, the sources don't agree, and neither do modern historians. What's certain is this: The Khwarezmians had every reason to hate the Mongols more than anyone else on that field. What role, if any, that hatred played at Ain Jalut is a question the record leaves open, and an honest telling of this story leaves it open too.
Qutuz rode back toward Cairo, a hero.
The man who had stopped an empire no one else had managed to even slow down. He had 50 days left to live. Near a place called Al-Qusayr, on the road home, a group of his own officers moved against him. Among them, Babers, the same commander who had led the front line beside him at Ain Jalut, who had ridden into that valley because Qutuz asked him to. The empire that could not defeat Qutuz in open war did not kill him. His own men did, on the road home, less than 2 months after he saved them. He saved a civilization. It did not get the chance to save him back.